The White Sox blew 2 leads to the Chicago Cubs and now have lost a franchise-tying record 13 straight games. This has to be it for manager Pedro Grifol, right? Let's discuss next on Locked On White Sox.
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And hello, I'm your host, Todd Welter, a lifelong Sox fan and the site expert of Southside Showdown, part of the fan-sided network. You can check out my written content at southsideshowdown.com. And also, I've covered Major League Baseball for outlets such as the Associated Press. And thanks for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox. Smash that like button. Also follow or subscribe to the show on wherever you get your podcasts. And hey, leave a 5-star review. Well, the Sox blew a 5-0 lead on Tuesday and a 5-1 lead last night to the Cubs as the Northsiders swept the Sox with 2 straight 7-6 victories. The White Sox have now lost 17 of their past 18 games. They're 15-47 and 26 games back of the Cleveland Guardians. Now, the stories are coming out about manager Pedro Grifol's job security, and I'll discuss why it is time to make a change for the sake of making a change at the manager spot. Then let's discuss the good and the bad in the Cubs series, and finally, what to watch for / headlines in the upcoming 4-game series against the Boston Red Sox. But today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. So Pedro Grifol actually discussed his job status yesterday, and here are the comments I pieced together while I was surfing around on the Sox internet. CHGO beat writer Vinny Duber, he put this in his write-up, quote, and this is what Grifol said, quote, "I don't focus on that stuff. It's part of the job. We're not winning. So when you're not winning, speculation gets higher and higher. It's part of what we do. We get signed up to win baseball games, and when you don't, there's always a possibility of a change being made." I didn't read the article, and side note, timeout. I will talk about this article that he's referencing in just a second. Back to the quote. "I understand the question. I understand the stories. I get it all. I'll answer the questions, but my answers are always going to be the same." And Ryan Taylor, he had a write-up on NBCSportsChicago.com, and I hope Ryan gets hired by the next sports network. He does a really good job writing. Chicago Sports Network, as you know, the White Sox are moving to a new television home soon. But anyways, quote, "I don't make those decisions, and I'm certainly not going to worry about it. My concern is making sure this team is ready to play tonight, making adjustments from yesterday, and trying to see if we can snap this losing streak. That's no fun, extremely painful because we've lost some painful games, but I'm certainly not going to make this about me and my future here. I'm not going to decide that anyway. I don't make those decisions." And then Scott Merkin, the MLB beat reporter for the Chicago White Sox, he had this on X, formerly Twitter, at Scott Merkin. Grifol on job security, quote, "I'm fine with it addressing these questions, but I'm not going to sit here and address it every day. I don't focus on that stuff. It's part of the job. We're not winning. So when you're not winning, speculation gets higher and higher." And he then added, "I'm comfortable with who I am as a baseball man and what I bring to the table. And these coaches are really good coaches that really care. We bleed this. This is what we do for a living." End quote. Oh boy. Pedro knows what he brings to the table. Well, we also know what he brings to the table, and it's nothing but bad. And that article that he was referencing that I quoted from Vinny Duber, that Vinny Duber pulled from the quote. Well, Ken Rosenthal had a write-up in The Athletic about now it's just a matter of when Grifol will be fired. Excuse me one second. And there's 3 paragraphs I want to share. So this is what Rosenthal wrote. "The test of Getz's patience with Grifol likely will come later in the season when the White Sox are ready to promote some of their top prospects. At that point, Getz will need to decide, can top young players such as shortstop Colson Montgomery, catcher Edgar Quero, and right-hander Drew Thorpe thrive in the environment Grifol has created? Or might the entire team benefit from a change right then and there? The choice might not be entirely Getz's, just as the return of Grifol after last year's 61-101 cratering might not have been entirely the GM's choice either. Nothing with the White Sox happens without Jerry Reinsdorf's approval, and Reinsdorf operates according to his own whims, no one else's. And then later, this is what Rosenthal wrote. One White Sox player, granted anonymity for his candor, viewed Grifol's bleeping flat comment as simply an attempt to motivate the club, adding, quote, "It's really hard to judge him when you have a team made up like this and all these injuries," end quote. Another player, however, said Grifol's misstep was going public with his message after delivering it to the players directly in a team meeting behind closed doors. Okay, so first, sounds like you got a split on who's backing Grifol and who's not. And the granted anonymity for candor, wonder who that came from. Maybe the initials TP or TFAM. I don't know. And the misstep, maybe initials KL, Corey Lee. I'm not saying because we don't know. But again, that bleeping flat comment, 3 players came out, even 4 said, look, we ran into a really tough pitcher. And again, Pedro does not know how to really communicate well, at least to the public through the media. Also, Jerry Reinsdorf cannot cheap out here. The report Joe Colley had a few months ago that Jerry knew that Pedro Grifol was a dumpster fire, basically, as a manager, so far back as July, but didn't want to fire him because he didn't want to pay the remaining salary. Jerry can no longer waste our time. He's already wasting our time by putting self-imposed financial constrictions on this team, by not doing what it takes to run a modern baseball operation. You need to make change for the sake of change. Grifol is 76-208 since taking over last year. And I've discussed this extensively, but this team has just played awful baseball night after night under Grifol. And, Getz is going to have to ask those questions that Rosenthal posed, that do you trust Pedro to be the manager of Colson Montgomery, Drew Thorpe, Edgar Quero? I don't. I mean, Brian Ramos, he ripped the Brian Ramos on a play that he injured himself, tried to do a hustle play because he missed a sign. I mean, he gives infinite patience to struggling veterans, but none towards rookies or young players. Corey Lee called him out over that bleeping flat comment. Next day, he's not in the lineup. He keeps putting Martin Maldonado in the lineup over Lee. And the only reason why now Corey Lee's getting at bats is because of injuries. You can mix him in at DH and catcher. But I guarantee you, if the lineup was healthy, Corey Lee would be catching every few days because you got to have Martin Maldonado's experience out there, right? Even though he's an automatic out in the lineup. Corey Julks had a heater in New York. Then he got inconsistent playing time following. Dominic Fletcher, when he was recalled, basically sat on the bench. 3 young players that were getting inconsistent playing time, while Andrew Vaughn and Andrew Benintendi, both not at 100%, kept getting infinite patience. And last night, the criticism was out. Former Locked On White Sox host and current host of the CHGO White Sox podcast, Herb Lawrence, he tweeted this out at Ecknerwall23. Pedro has been bleeping flat his whole career, but this 7th inning, he's been asleep at the wheel. Michael Soroka hits Dansby Swanson, 213 average to start the inning, walks 150 hitting Yan Gomes, only his 2nd walk in 80 at-bats this season, and then Soroka balks and then walks Tauchman. And then he makes a bullpen decision. 38 pitches. Michael Soroka was awful last night. Didn't pull him. And here's the biggest reason this has to be it for Pedro and why you need to make change for the sake of change. Every proverbial button he pushes doesn't work. He is beyond being a negative win impact manager. He is a roving instructor pretending to be a big league manager. And I've discussed this before, but at least you have a net neutral option already on your coaching staff. Bench coach Charlie Montoya, 236 in 3.5 seasons with Toronto. He had a 91-71 record in 2021. Although the good thing is Rosenthal is reporting that Tony La Russa would not be tabbed to come back as the interim manager. But think about it. Pedro's been so bad that you got some folks in the Sox social media world pining for Tony again. You need to make change for the sake of change. You basically lost your World Series and blew it through your bullpen, which we'll get to in the next segment. It's time for Pedro to go. End this madness, please. Well, let's dive into the bad and the good and the Sox 2 defeats to the Cubs. Next, Locked On White Sox. PrizePicks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 5 million members. It is the most fun, exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. You just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. There's always action on PrizePicks, and this is the perfect time to try out something new as basketball is winding down. Make sure to try out esports this month because for every Wednesday and Saturday in June, if your lineup doesn't win, you'll get your entry fee back. Choose from Counter-Strike 2, Call of Duty, League of Legends, and more. If you're looking for promotions, PrizePicks has got you covered every week from lowering select player stat projections on Tuesdays which increases your chance of getting a win to getting your entry fees back if you have a losing lineup on Fridays. And here's what's great about PrizePicks. If you feel confident, go with the power play, meaning if every pick wins, you win a higher payout. Want to play it safe? They have the flex play where if you say do a 6-player choice and one misses, you still get a payout. Minimum entry is just $5. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks, pick more, pick less. It's that easy. And are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest sports stories without all that screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And the White Sox start a 4-game series with the Boston Red Sox. First pitch is at 7:10 p.m. Central. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search White Sox. And welcome back to Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter. And thank you for making the show your first listen. Again, lots of great White Sox podcasts out there. I just hope I'm the first one you take in. I can play nice in the sandbox. And make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox. Smash the like button. Also follow or subscribe to the show on wherever you get your podcasts. And hey, leave a 5-star review. So after every series, I typically like to talk about the good and the bad in it. And simply put, Sox blew two big leads thanks to the bullpen. That's pretty much what was bad. It was Justin Anderson, Tanner Banks, and Jordan Leisure who could not protect leads on Tuesday night. Then last night it was Michael Soroka, Jared Schuster, and Michael Kopech who could not protect leads or keep the game tied. It was Kopech who allowed the walk-off home run to Mike Tauchman last night. And basically it was first pitch gone. And make sure to read all of Kyle Williams' write-up in the Sun-Times. But here is 2 nuggets I want to share with you from that piece. Soroka threw 38 pitches and endured some lengthy at-bats. He struggled with his command and was unable to find the strike zone consistently, throwing only 22 strikes. Schuster allowed both runners he inherited from Soroka to score as the Cubs took a 6-5 lead. That the Sox let the Cubs come back was an indictment of a porous bullpen that has the highest walks per 9 innings rate in the majors. An untimely high pitch count is what forced Grifol to hand the game over to the bullpen yesterday. Eric Fetty was solid on the mound, and and that is kind of what he referenced about why did the bullpen have to get involved so early in the game, in both games, and I'll get to that. It was basically Eric Fetty's high pitch count that made the Sox turn that 5-1 lead over to the bullpen yesterday. And he was solid on the mound with 5 innings pitched, allowed 3 runs, 6 hits, and struck out 7. But he had 93 pitches thrown. And he had to work hard to get out of jams in the 2nd and the 5th. That's also where the Cubs got their 3 runs off of him. Also, Balks hurt him. Sorry, I had a technical difficulty there. The rain hurt Chris Flexen's dominant night on Tuesday. He had the Cubs on lockdown after being spotted a 5-0 lead through 4 innings. But a 40-minute rain delay only allowed Flexen to go 1 more inning. He allowed just 1 earned run on 3 hits and 4 Ks. And you got to wonder, if it doesn't rain, does he eat up a few more innings? And what is it with rain delays and the Cubs just coming back to win? Does Jason Hayward sneak into the clubhouse during every rain delay, fire up the Cubs? But the bullpen is what was bad. They were atrocious in this series. Also, Duke Ellis getting picked off in the 9th inning at second on Tuesday night was another bad look. Although Duke said that, the rookie said that, Pedro wanted him to steal third, get into scoring position in the 9th. But he got caught moving a bit too far from second, and that killed that 9th inning rally. So what was good? The offense, for the most part. The only sin they committed was not scoring even more runs. But when you score 6 runs in each game, that should give you a chance to win. Not with the White Sox bullpen, though. I mean, when you got more bad players than good players, what happened the last 2 nights is going to happen. But in terms of the offense, Corey Julks led off game 2 with a home run, also had 2 more hits. Andrew Vaughn, playing with that hurt finger, 4 for 8 with a walk and 2 runs. His slash line is now up to 211, 275, and 325. Hey, progress. Luis Robert Jr., 2 hits, including a homer on Tuesday that put the Sox ahead 6-5 in the 7th. So the Sox gave up that 5-0 lead and then got it back. Still lost 7-6. So White Sox. He was 0 for 5 last night, but still nice to see him back in the lineup. Oscar Colas had some nice at-bats. And my apologies for forgetting about him on yesterday's show. He does need to be the everyday right fielder while Tommy Pham is out. You play Julks, Robert, and Colas. That should be the outfield. Had some nice at-bats. Worked a walk in the 9th. Nice pitch hit walk before Ellis came on to pinch run. And yes, Duke Ellis can fly on the base path. Pitched run again last night, stole second. But Colas had a nice at-bat in the 4th yesterday to drive in a run. He's taking some more pitches. He's trying to control the strike zone. Hey, imagine that. You're trying to develop a hitter that wants to control the strike zone. It's great to see. Lenyn Sosa, for 2 nights, I was wrong about him. But it's for 2 nights only. He's got to show more. But he was 2 for 3 on Tuesday with a homer and 2 for 3 last night with an RBI. Corey Lee, couple hits, 3 RBI and 2 runs scored. One of the unintended consequences of all these injuries now is it allows Lee to either DH or catch. Although I would just prefer he catch and Martin Maldonado go be the assistant catching coach. Paul DeYoung with his 10th dinger last night to tie the game in the 8th. See, the bats battled back too. They spotted the pitching a lead, bullpen gives it back, bats try to battle back. We have not seen that much this year. You got solid starting pitching. Granted, it would have been nice that Flexen and Fetty went a little longer. You got really good offense, and that is why it was so frustrating to see these two losses, and really these past five. I've got a short on YouTube and on TikTok talking about this. I'm tired of every time the Sox have a lead, you just got that feeling in your gut that they're going to blow it. Just that pit of despair. And I've tweeted that on Locked On Sox. I've tweeted the last couple times on polls. How is this team going to blow it? Because they keep finding ways to lose. They had a chance to beat the Brewers at least 2 games. They had leads in all 3, and they blew it mostly because of the bullpen. Some changes need to be made. Anderson, John Brebbia, although he was pretty solid last night, but at least Anderson, Brebbia, and Soroka need to be DFA'd. Send a message. Well, hey, on to the next series, as they say, and let's discuss that upcoming 4-game series with Boston next. Locked On White Sox. This season might be awful, but you can still make some memories by taking in a game at the ballpark. Nick Morawski was on the show a few days ago and talked about how he had a great time at a game recently. He went with his family this season, and his son just had an amazing time. It was so cool for him to see. And Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch. And get a panoramic view of your seat in the app before you buy, so that way you know if you're getting a good seat. The lowest price guaranteed or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB. That's Locked On MLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. And the White Sox start a 4-game series with the Boston Red Sox. First pitch is at 7:10 p.m. Central. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search White Sox. And welcome back into Locked On White Sox. Thank you for sticking with me through the show. Sorry about the technical issue in the last segment. My mic is a little touchy. You just move it just a second and it might disconnect for like just a brief second. And I was in Naperville for the day yesterday. Nice to be back in the home country. I'm not from Naperville, but from Illinois. Did represent the Johnsburg Skyhawks t-shirt yesterday. Went mainstream for lunch. Went with Portillo's. Sometimes you just got to go mainstream. Or as I like to say, you got to go corporate. They still have amazing hot dogs and an amazing Italian beef. I know there's, more, Chicago in places. And I'm not saying Naperville is Chicago like certain news outlets did. But, Portillo's still always will be a solid choice in my opinion. Even though I can get it up here in Wisconsin. Would be nice if like Al's expanded a little bit more. I grew up with Tommy's. I know they're around in the area. Oh, talk about inflation. I remember when I was a kid, they had a teenager. They had a hot dog special. You got 2 hot dogs, fries, and a drink, and it was like $3. I went there about last year, and it was like $11. 20 years, the price went up by $8. Anyways, the Sox are back home to take on the Red Sox in a 4-game set. Boston comes in with a 31-31 record, 12.5 back of their hated rivals, the New York Yankees, in the AL East standings. They're 17-13 on the road. We all know how the Yankees, Jays just absolutely demolished the White Sox during this brutal 39-game stretch of schedule. So did the Orioles. The Sox have beaten the Tampa Bay Rays, but so far the AL East has been just brutal on the White Sox. Sox have had just one win so far against the AL East during this stretch. The Red Sox, middle of the pack in the league in team average on base percentage, but top 10 in slugging and OPS. They're 12th in runs scored and 10th in home runs. The White Sox are dead last in all those categories. Boston's pitching is 5th in the league in ERA and 6th in WHIP, but they're not the best fielding team in baseball as they're dead last in fielding percentage. So, hey, there's a team that can say that they're worse than the White Sox in something. Progress, folks. Rafael Devers is coming in hot. He's 6 for 15 to start June. Has 2 walks, 3 homers, and 6 RBIs. But the biggest storylines, or what to watch for in this series, is can the Sox offensive explosion carry over to the season? We know the Cubs bullpen has some issues. They will give up runs. Imanaga, he's also been maybe figured out. But the Sox offense needs to jump out early. So far they're not the greatest at coming back. It was nice to see them scrap, but they got to jump out to that early lead. And it would be nice to see them score some runs against a better pitching staff. The Cubs do have good starting pitching, but Jameson Taillon and Imanaga, they have their issues. And as I just pointed out, Boston has a really good pitching staff. Rookie Nick Nastrini, he pitches on Saturday. He needs to command the baseball better. Against Milwaukee, he was out of the zone a lot. Needs to avoid those walks. Needs to throw more strikes. So let's see if he can avoid that. And Chris Flexen, he pitches on Sunday. Would be nice to see him turn in another solid start like he did against the Cubs on Tuesday and the Blue Jays last week. And also, it would be nice to see him go more than 5 innings. And maybe, hopefully, we have a new manager, at least a new interim manager, in Charlie Montoya guiding the team. But I doubt the White Sox make that move. I have a feeling Pedro Grifol will still be the manager, at least through the trade deadline. Well, anyways, that wraps up this edition of Locked On White Sox. Before I go, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Now it's also available on the Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV Channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV Channels app. And I will be back tomorrow to wrap up the series between, I'll be back tomorrow to talk more about the series between the Sox and the Red Sox. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube page at Locked On White Sox. Smash the like button and give a 5-star review on wherever you get your podcasts. Also, feel free to leave comments about today's topics regarding it's time to end the Pedro Grifol experience, the good and the bad against the Cubs, and what to watch for in the upcoming series against Boston. You can leave them on X, formerly Twitter, at ToddJDub, or email me at lockedonwhitesox@gmail.com. Have a great day. See you tomorrow.